It is just a huge honor today to be podcast interviewing Bob Miller and his wife, Keirene. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
I've had several people tell me you got to get Bob on and have him tell the story of his website, UnitedFantasyFlight.com. Mm-hmm. And it's a very interesting story. This is your second year. You started in 2016?
No, this is our 22nd year.
Oh my gosh.
We've been doing this for 22 years now.
Wow. So you've been a pilot with United for 29 years.
29 years.
And you've been doing this 22 years?
In Phoenix.
22 years of age.
This will be our 22nd anniversary in Phoenix.
That is
Fantasy Flight.
Wow. Now you're from California. Mm-hmm. Been with United 29 years. How long have you been in Ahwatukee?
Since '96. So I've been in Ahwatukee 21 years.
Wow. And you've been doing the United Fantasy Flight for 22 years.
Correct.
Wow. Well, tell them what it is, because when I was first heard about it, I didn't even know about it, and I'm sorry I didn't know.
Well, the Fantasy Flight is a great event. Has a one-day event, but it's also a 501c3 nonprofit charity, and we support deserving kids throughout the year. The culmination happens every December for the event itself, and we take between 120 and 140, we call them deserving kids from Title I schools, on a flight to the North Pole. and yes,
cool.
Yes, it is a real flight. We use a 737 or an A320. United gives us the airplane and pays for the gas and tells us to have a nice day. And we take the kids up, we fly them around for about 45 minutes. We come back around and land. And then we have a different gate area set up as the North Pole. And there's 20 stations at the North Pole. One of those 20 stations is Santa Claus, where they get the presents. They're escorted by Arizona State University student athletes. So we have the baseball players, the volleyball players, the football players. We give 2 kids for each student athlete, and that student athlete's assignment is to make sure their 2 kids get to all 20 stations. And we have a number of stations where they get to interact with positive role models. We have the policemen, the firemen, we have PGA tour guys. We have all kinds of, great people they get to talk to and interact with all day. So it's about 3 or 4 hours at the North Pole, and then they get to go home. But then the rest of the year, all the money that we raise, we target those schools from that the kids came onto the flight, and we support them financially. We've been buying technology, laptops, e-Kindle readers, school supplies. We also pay for scholarships to the Junior Achievement Program, and they do BizTown, they do JA Day, so that's all throughout the year. What everybody talks about is the event itself, the one-day event, which is really a once-in-a-lifetime Christmas experience for some kids that wouldn't have a Christmas experience normally.
And this is at Terminal 2?
We leave at a Terminal 2, yes.
And then when you come back, it's at a different terminal in Terminal 2?
Yep, we've had it at Gate C and D in Terminal 2 since the beginning. This year is going to be different because all that area is under construction now. They're building the light rail that's going to go out to the rent-a-car center. So there is no Gate C and D anymore.
Bob, it's been under construction since I got here 30 years ago. I've never seen it.
But they've actually torn it up this time.
They've actually torn it up. Yeah, when I got here, there was Terminal 1. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do.
And now so where did all this come from? Whose idea? Who's the founder? How did this happen?
I started it here in Phoenix 22 years ago. And I did that because I was lucky enough to participate in the very first fantasy flight at United Airlines, which was in London, England. And it was December of 1991. A flight attendant came up with the idea. He was a volunteer at a local orphanage in London. I was based in London at the time, flying inter-European routes on the 727s. And the flight attendant came up and said, we ought to do something special for these kids in the orphanage. And United gave us a Shell credit card and a 727 and said, have fun. And we literally took 100 kids from that orphanage that day and flew them to the North Pole. We landed in a little tiny town in Finland called Rovaniemi. And if you can look that up, Google Rovaniemi. It's where Lapland is and Father Christmas Village is. I think they call it Santa Claus Village now. It was Father Christmas Village when I was there. And It was about a 4.5 hour flight each way. We put 9 hours on the airplane that day. And we took the kids on reindeer sleigh rides through the forest, and they got to see Santa Claus. So that was a one-time event in 1991. I got back here to Phoenix, and I walked into the manager's office, Rich Varian, and I said, you know, Rich, we got to do something in Phoenix. Probably a little far to go to the actual North Pole, but we had to do something here. And this is what happened. And it's gotten a little bigger and a little better every single year for 22 years.
And how many kids is it each year on the plane?
Anywhere between 120 and 140.
That's how many seats are on the plane?
No, that's how many kids are on the airplane. We take 120 to 140 kids on the airplane.
Wow, that is just amazing. Congratulations.
Thanks. We have a lot of fun doing it.
And you said they were from Title I schools?
Correct.
And what does that mean? And where are Title I? Are there any Title I schools in Ahwatukee?
No.
No.
There isn't any. We have the Keirene School District, and they have plenty of money. Title I schools take care of kids that are what you would call underprivileged, or half of them are homeless, maybe.
Half of them are homeless.
Yeah, and they literally don't have anything. And so it's a big deal to have any kind of a Christmas experience. So we try to make this as special as possible for them. And then, of course, we try to support the schools year-round because they are Title I schools. They don't have the luxuries that we have here in Ahwatukee at the Keirene, district. They don't get all the special stuff.
So then the support for the schools like Keirene doesn't come from Arizona or Phoenix. So you're saying richer communities have nicer schools and poorer communities have poorer schools?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh? I didn't. I think of like ASU and U of A. I mean, it's a state deal.
Yeah.
But that's not the case.
We also take, in addition to some schools, we try to take some kids from other places other than schools as well. We use a New Leaf. It's a shelter and a transitional housing place for families that have come on hard times for whatever reason. So those families don't have a whole lot. So we take some kids from those shelters and stuff. Done that for the last few years at New Leaf.
And then we're including some military families.
And this year, for the first time, we like to use the term deserving kids. And we try to keep it positive. But we're going to take 25 to 35 kids from Luke Air Force Base whose parents are currently deployed overseas in Afghanistan and Iraq and stuff.
They need a Christmas.
Yeah, they need a special Christmas.
So their parents are deployed, so are they left on hard times?
Well, no.
Not hard times.
They're nothing like the Title I schools.
Yeah.
But we feel they deserve a special Christmas, too. We think it's appropriate.
That is amazing. So, I wonder what percent of the Arizona schools are Title I?
That's a good question. I don't know.
Is it a rare thing, or is it more common than...
I think it's probably more common. There's a lot of Title I schools. We get a lot of letters every year from parents and teachers and administrators asking to be included in our program. And of course, we can't we're limited with the number of seats on the airplane. We try to do what we can, and we try to spread the wealth out a little bit. But there is a lot of Title I schools in Arizona.
So you're involved with this too?
Yes, I became involved to help with the fundraising because all United gives us is the airplane and the gas. So all the money to support this event is done with a fundraiser. And over the past, they did such things in the very beginning of just selling books that had been found on the planes, selling them back to passengers. And then it
We had
moved.
a big sign that said, if you lost your book on the airplane, you can buy it back here. That was our first fundraiser.
I've left, I can't tell you how many books I've left.
Thank you for supporting us then.
In the pocket ahead of me.
And then we started with a wine tasting at the My Wine Cellar, and now we're doing a golf tournament. This is our second year to do the United Fantasy Flight
Okay, that's where I got the
golf
second.
tournament.
That's where I got the second.
With live and silent auction and dinner, and that's on November 2nd in Ahwatukee.
November 2nd, which one of the 4 golf courses? Will it be at the Palms?
Oh,
The
Foothills
Foothills.
Golf Club.
There's a lot of room on the Palms.
The Palms. Which one is
The
the
Ahwatukee Lakes,
Oh, the lakes.
the
Yeah.
one that's
That's closed now.
yeah. You can schedule that one 24 hours. So it's at the Ahwatukee Foothills.
Ahwatukee Foothills on Chandler and Clubhouse Drive.
Okay, Chandler and Clubhouse Drive, not the Ahwatukee. The other one's called Club West.
West.
You have Club
Right.
West. That's the one the furthest.
Yeah, but it's
closest.
not that one. It's the
No.
one about 24th Street.
Yes.
It's between 24th Street and Desert Foothills Parkway,
Yeah,
and just on the south side of Chandler.
yeah, where they just are tearing down the church there.
Yeah, it's a little bit northwest of
Yeah,
that.
yeah. So tell us more about that.
Well, it's going to be a fun day, and it's a good deal. For $99, you get 18 holes with a cart and dinner. That includes dinner. If you just want to come out for the dinner, it's only $15. And at the dinner, we're going to have a silent auction and some other fundraiser type stuff. It'll be a lot of fun. It'll be a
Yeah.
cash bar. Free dinner, but a cash bar.
That's nice that United lets you have a plane and fly around for an hour. I mean, airlines, it seems like they've that's a tough business. I've been watching guys. I mean, I've been in Phoenix for 30 years, and I've seen it was America West, and it was gobbled up by
U.S. Air.
U.S. Air, then gobbled up by
American.
American. God, when I was little, growing up in Kansas, I mean, the big airlines were Braniff, Eastern, and TWA.
Yep.
Right.
And who would have thought TWA would someday not be?
I know.
Yeah.
Pan Am and TWA were the two big ones,
Pan Am and TWA, and they're gone.
and they're gone.
Yeah.
So you've seen a lot. I mean, your industry. Would you call it? What was that movie? Greed is Good. Is them going from 20 airlines to 5? Is that a
Yeah.
good thing, or is that good for business and the customers and the pilots, or is
Well,
everything a trade off?
You know, everything is. Until the day you retire, you don't know what was the right move, right? And so it's all up in the air. But I think we're on
All
the right
up in the
track.
air. No pun intended.
I really think the airline industry is on the right track. They've rationalized. They've rationalized the industry, and times are pretty good right now. And they should, instead of having the big peaks and the big valleys and the big roller coaster rides that we've had for the last 30, 40 years in the industry, now it's pretty much steady.
The
Which
one
is a good
concern,
thing.
the one concern though is that none of our airlines are government owned, whereas you go to Emirates or some of these others and they're government owned, and so what they're going to try to do is flood the United States.
But what we want to do is talk about the fantasy flight today. We don't want
Well,
to.
we can talk about whatever you want to talk about, but yeah, that's called dumping, right?
Mm-hmm.
That when a company gets money from their government, that's why America doesn't make a TV anymore, because the American TV manufacturers went to the government. They said Japan, Korea, China are subsidizing their TV deals, and they're selling it below cost. It's called dumping. And our government said, well, we believe in free trade. And they said, okay, but it's not fair trade. So now America doesn't make a TV. So you're saying some of these other government airlines can do the same thing.
But United is, but the industry itself is rationalized now, and United, because it's been rationalized and we're fairly stable and doing, fairly well, they've really taken the lead on some of these things like the fantasy flight and supporting us on that. And that's important for.
So where
for the
does this
community.
come from within you? Where does this urge? Where did you learn this? Was your mom and dad into charity? Were you?
Well,
was it
I
church,
think
Boy Scouts?
my family's always been, good about stuff. But for me, it was really the London fantasy flight in 1991 that, the light bulb kind of came on. I said, man, this is awesome. And you could see the looks on the kid's face, and you could see the net result. The net result was, more than they ever thought would happen. So I thought, why don't we do that here in Phoenix?
And Bob mentioned to me the first time that I went on the flight that once you get involved with the United Fantasy Flight, it's kind of like being in the mafia, because once you see the look on these kids' faces of what you're doing for them, you cannot get out. You cannot not go and support this. And it's the truth. I mean, these kids, they're so happy. They're so excited. It's a memorable moment.
The benefits are tangible.
Yeah. There's a story that there's a woman here in Ahwatukee is a foster mom. And she was trying to get introduced to one of her new foster daughters. And she was asking her, have you ever been on an airplane before? And she said, no, but my brother has. And she said, really? Where'd your brother go? And she said, to the North Pole. This young man had been on one of our flights, and so the whole family felt that he'd been to the North Pole. So it touches the family.
That is so cool. Now, what would you say the average age of these kids are? I mean, are they?
We try to target, we use different schools throughout, every year. We try to get different kids so we don't get the same kids over and over. But we try to target kindergartners and first graders. So they're 6, 7, 8 years old.
Because they still believe.
They
Yep.
still believe.
So yeah, it's so about kindergarten, first grades where they don't believe?
Kindergarten, first grade is what we target to actually go on the flight to the North Pole. But then whatever school those kindergartners and first graders go to, we support the entire school financially.
So how much money do you try to raise each year?
Well, we're small. We're not a big charity, and for our first 15 years, we barely made enough money to actually do the flight, and that was it. But about 7 years ago, maybe 8 years ago now, we actually raised more money than we spent on the event. And the first year that happened, we thought, well, we have money left over. What do we do with it? And it wasn't much. So we said, well, we'll set that aside for next year. We'll have a head start on next year. And then the next year we did even better. Then we had a lot of money left over. And we said, well, so then it came the idea, well, we should give that back to the schools. And we never write a check to the school. We don't go to Concordia Charter School or there's one called Step Up. It's a charter school called Step Up. Diane Fernicchio runs. We don't just go to Step Up and say, here's a check and spend it how you want. We actually go to the schools. We'll spend a day at the schools and we'll find out what exactly do they need to make it better for the kids. And then we'll actually go buy that and give it to the school. Whether it be computers or e-Kindle readers or basic school supplies or books.
For first graders?
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
for the
we
entire
support the
school.
whole school.
But it'd be
With the money.
kindergarten through 6. These
Yes.
schools.
Yeah, they'd be elementary school.
So elementaries K
What-
through
such
6.
as Concordia, which is in Mesa. They needed to have all new IT, all new wiring done in their school. It was very archaic, and all the testing's now done on the internet. So we
They
rewired
couldn't
their
even
school.
take their AIMS testing
Yeah.
because they didn't have the infrastructure.
So my boys from kindergarten till 12th grade, they were on one street. How much less of a facility or spending are some of these Title Ones compared to the 3 schools that I've been in? I mean,
Well,
is
what
it-
we're talking about is the basic necessities. And the difference between a Title I school and, say, an Ahwatukee Miller and, in Keirene is they do more than just teach class every day. At Ahwatukee Miller, they have sports programs and they have music programs and they have school and all that. The Title I schools, they worry about feeding the kids breakfast in the morning. And they do the lunch program in the afternoon. They have an on-site nurse that does basic medical care. So they try to provide not just schooling but basic care as well. These kids really don't have a lot. And our whole philosophy is, a kid just needs an opportunity. So we just try to give the kids an opportunity to succeed. Give them the tools that they need to succeed.
Well, it was Winston Churchill after World War II. I mean, London was blown up and leveled, and he said we need to focus on healthcare and education because if everybody's sick and dumb, that's no way to run a country. And he said, you want a country with the healthy, educated people.
Mm-hmm.
And now here we are 75 years later and
We
still
still don't have it, yeah.
still don't have it.
Still working on it.
Yeah.
But it's just if you can just touch one child or 10 children, be it whatever, you're at least changing their lives. We can't change the world, but we can do one child at a time.
Growing up in a Catholic school, my favorite nun, my favorite female role model was Mother Teresa of Calcutta, and she used to always say, if you can't feed 100 starving children, just feed one.
Yep.
And that always resonated with me because you can't solve.
No.
And there's too many Title I schools, to be honest with you, in Phoenix for us to, really make a huge dent, but we try.
See that? I mean, I'm so glad we're and instead of having international social media where it's owned by Wall Street and around the world, just something wrong with you because I would have always assumed that the state government paid for all the schools and it was like a per dollar per head, like.
They do.
They do.
Yeah, I mean, there's a formula that the kids, so much dollars per kid go to the schools, but a lot of these other schools have a lot of additional money because of the tax revenues in that particular county.
Okay, so.
And then these Title I schools provide a lot more than just the basic education stuff.
Yeah.
They're doing the breakfast programs and the lunch programs and some medical care and so forth.
And most people in Ahwatukee can afford to buy their child a computer or a laptop or a iPad or something like that. These kids in these Title I schools do not have that luxury. And so for them to try and study, which everything again is pretty much on the internet, they don't have that unless we somehow supply that for them. And so that's why we supply technology to these schools. It's for these kids to be able to study and test.
I can really tell you guys are both very passionate about this. I mean, this touches a raw spot with you guys.
Yeah.
It does. It does. And we'd like to think we've made a little bit of a difference, and that's why we keep doing it over and over every year.
Yeah. So is this mostly all United people that do this, or are there friends and family, or people from your church, or who's the crux of?
We have a lot of volunteers. Initially, and the majority of them are either United employees or retired United employees. We have the luxury in Phoenix that this is a large retirement area. A lot of people who worked for United for 25, 30, 40 years in Chicago or New York or San Francisco or Seattle, whatever, they retire to Phoenix. And there's retiree groups that get together monthly and have luncheons. So
really, well, that's cool.
We use them because they have time, and they're the ones that go out and do the shopping and buy all the presents, and they're the ones that decorate, and they're the ones that do a lot of the stuff for the event itself.
And Ahwatukee's always been heavily weighted in pilots because you're 15 minutes from the airport.
Yeah, we're close to the airport, and there's a lot of pilots and a lot of employees in the airline. But we also have a lot of friends. People get involved for one reason or the other. I don't know if you know Art Miller with Epic Produce.
Art Miller with Epic Produce.
He's a great guy. He's a big business guy that I don't think he's ever met a charity that he didn't like.
Does he live in Ahwatukee?
He does.
Well, send him over.
Okay.
Susan Loken and
Susan Loken from
Believe Train Become, the running group. They get running shoes for all the kids.
They all get a brand new pair of Nike shoes at the event.
And
Wow.
Nike doesn't give them to them.
They pay full price. That the running
Soul
group
Sports
buys them.
helps.
You look like you're a runner. Are you? Or are you just
A little bit.
born with
Used
gifted
to be. Oh no,
genes?
used to
She's
be.
run 26 marathons.
Wow.
Yeah, haven't ran in a while.
But were you ever overweight? I mean, was that your birth metabolism, or do you credit it from running?
I accredit it from running. Yeah. At one point, I was a size 12, so for my frame, that was kind of big. Yeah.
I don't know what size I am.
I met him through running.
Really, you guys were both runners. Mm-hmm. And is that still a big part of your life? You guys run a lot?
No.
She walks every day. I had a knee replacement, so I haven't been able to run for the last couple of years.
Now, do you think that was from running?
That certainly helped. Yeah, that certainly helped.
Or it's usually either acute auto accident, or
Yeah, the
So
running,
did you have an injury too, like an acute injury?
I had ended up having 3 knee surgeries and then had a bunch of stuff going on. I always ran too far, too fast, and too often, and I didn't listen to my coach.
So you guys met running, but you do this charity together.
Mm-hmm.
We do.
Yeah.
I became part of the mafia.
Yeah, that was a neat example. Yeah, I had never heard that one. That once you join the mafia, you can never leave.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah, and once you are part of this, be it you go to the schools and you do part of the junior achievement, or you go to fit shoes, or you go to the event itself, you just realize that just touching that one child, just talking to that one child, just giving them something to dream for, it's important.
Yeah, you get verklempt talking about it, don't you?
Oh, I do. Yep.
There's always a 2 or 3 stories every year of some kid that tugs on your heartstrings,
Yeah. So it's $99 a person.
$99 a person if you want to play golf. And that includes everything, 18 holes, plus the cart, plus dinner. That's everything, the whole shooting match. If you just want to come out in the evening, you can come out at 5 o'clock, 5 or 6 o'clock, and you can have dinner for $15. It's going to be like a Mexican-style buffet. And then there's going to be a cash bar. And there's going to be some festivities at the dinner. We're going to have a silent auction with a lot of really fun prizes.
We're also looking for hole sponsors. We still have a few holes left to be sponsored, and hole sponsorship is
It's $250 for a hole sponsorship, or $500 for a hole sponsorship with participation. So if you want to say sponsor the 5th hole and you want to participate, then you can bring a group of people out and you can sit on the tee box of that hole and you can pass out flyers or your business card or goodies
or toothbrushes.
Okay, you want to?
Our
You
toothbrushes.
can come out with tooth.
I'm putting on my calendar right now.
Yeah.
Be great.
Thursday. So Thursday, November 2nd. When is so that's before Halloween or before Thanksgiving.
Yes.
So it's basically the week after Halloween. It's the week of Halloween.
Yes.
Correct.
So
Just after. Just
it's
after.
The weather
basically-
should be perfect.
It's basically just about 1 month from today.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So
One,
we're going to be
two,
really
three,
gearing up here in the next week or two, getting it all set up. It's going to be a fun day, fun event.
Well, I'm gonna go.
Awesome.
I'm gonna be there, and
Get a foursome.
I will. I'm every golf course in Ahwatukee has a restraining order against me, and I have to.
It's a
I have
great way to
bring
get
my
on.
own sod to replace all my divots as I golf. I don't know if. I'm glad you didn't have it on the Club West because they've delayed seeding the golf course, or what, they're having water issues.
Yeah, they've had some water issues. I think they're doing okay though now. But we just Barry Hand, who's the head pro at the Foothills Golf Club.
Barry Hand.
Barry Hand, he's a good guy, and he helped us out, and he believes in our program, and he took good care of us here. It's going to be a nice event.
So he's the head golf pro there. Barry Hand, Hand, like a hand.
Yeah.
Barry Hand. That name comes in handy. So Barry Hand, the golf pro's all behind it.
Oh yeah.
Oh.
And so you think you're going to get all your holes sponsored?
Well, we're going
We're
to try.
hoping so.
We'll see. We got a month to go yet, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
We'd like to.
Yeah. Well, anything else you want to say?
No, thanks for having us. I hope the word gets out, and looking forward to another great year.
Well, Captain Bob Miller, I still, I just think it's amazing. I mean, you know, it's what they call those 1,000 points of light in the community. I mean, some people just give back. Some people volunteer. Some people set out to touch one kid, and I just think it's really, really cool that that's you and your partner, Keirene.
She does all the hard work.
You do all the hard work, all the logistics.
Oh,
She
no.
does.
Captain Bob just
It's
gets
a
all the
team.
credit.
Yeah, it's a team. He deserves it.
So, are you still a full-time pilot at United?
Oh yeah.
And now a full-time pilot, what does that mean usually? You fly out like 3 days, or
It depends. It's
how
all
many,
based
how many
on
days a month are you gone?
too many.
Too many?
He's a 777 captain, and so he's based out of Chicago. So,
So I have to commute to Chicago to start work.
And what's your would you rather be flying Boeings or Airbuses? Which one's more fun to fly?
I'm a Boeing guy,
Which means you have the steering wheel.
right?
And the Airbus, there's no steering wheel.
It's a stick.
It's a stick.
My
Kinda
brother, my brother flies the Airbus, and we go back and forth all the time.
Yeah.
So I like Boeing.
As a passenger, I think they sound different.
They do.
One of them is more of a higher pitch, and the Boeing, I call it more like a Hurley sound, and the Airbus more of a high pitch. You hear the difference in there?
When the A320 first came out, I always thought it sounded like two Briggs and Stratton lawnmower engines going.
Yeah,
But it's a very reliable airplane. It's a great airplane.
yeah.
I mean, I have nothing against Airbus. I just like Boeing.
So in all honesty, so many people are afraid of flying. And it's so bizarre because 30,000 Americans die in a car each year, and you don't even have 300 die.
We had 0 last year.
Yeah, but so why is everybody afraid of flying, yet 30,000 people die in a car and no one died on United last year?
No one died any airline last year.
So
There was 0 fatalities in the aviation industry last year.
It's
0.
it's kind of like I have it in dentistry too, where someone will come in, they got a bar through their tongue, they got a paper clip through their eyebrow, they have a whole arm sleeve, And then I'm like, I'm going to give you the only sterile injection you've ever had in your life because you didn't get it when you got the tongue, the eyebrow, the tattoo. And they're just like hanging on for dear life. And then the same thing with flying. I mean, I know a few people that can only fly an airplane. One has to go to a doctor and get a Xanax, and the other one has to go to the bar an hour before and have
Which is probably the wrong thing to do.
Yeah.
You know,
Well,
Well, it's pretty safe to say the bar is never a good idea.
Yeah, well, it also dehydrates you. And then the effects are a lot more for that. So they say it's best to drink water. on the plane.
So the fear is irrational. Zero. So what do you tell people when they say, I don't know how you do your job, that would be so frightening, I don't want to fly? What do you tell them?
I like my job. I love my job, actually.
Yeah?
I like what I do.
I work in healthcare, and I've worked with physicians forever, and you have to have all this CME, and you have all these different things, but pilots have more CME,
What's Sammy?
continuing medical education or continuing education and continual training, and they have to have medicals every 6 months.
We get a medical every 6 months. We go to the simulator every 9 months. We have random drug and alcohol testing. We have all kinds of...
Which you don't see
We're the
with
most
physicians.
scrutinized. We're the most scrutinized employees on the planet.
Yeah.
Do you like that?
It's fine.
What would you say to some kid listening right now who goes to Mountain Point or Disvis and they say, when I grow up, I want to be like Captain Bob and I want to be a pilot? What would you tell them?
This is a great time. There's actually a shortage of new pilots coming up, and I have a 18-year-old nephew just graduated high school in May, and he's going to be a pilot. And I got him started. I got him on his first flight, and he got his private pilot license, and he just started at Auburn University.
At where?
Auburn University in Alabama.
In Alabama?
But
He's in
ASU also has a good program.
He's in the professional pilot program at Auburn, but we did two tours at ASU, and it was his final two choices were either ASU or Auburn, and he ended up going to Auburn.
So ASU has a pilot degree?
They have a great aviation program. They have a satellite campus that it used to be Williams Air Force Base. Now it's called Williams Field. Williams
Way
Gateway.
out there in East Mesa.
Yeah, and it's Gateway Airport, Mesa Gateway Airport, and they have that entire campus on that airport, and they have a great aviation program for pilots, mechanics, anybody who wants to do anything with the aviation industry.
And isn't there another one up north, like something like Embry-Riddle or
Embry-Riddle is in Prescott.
Embry-Riddle
Embry.
in Prescott, and that's just only flight college, right?
No, it's aviation. So they do the same. You have dispatchers and meteorologists and mechanics, and it's an aviation school. And they have two main campuses. One is in Prescott and one is in Daytona Beach, Florida.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that's a big NASCAR town?
But there's never been, for somebody who wants to get in the industry right now, there has literally never been a better time. For many reasons. I mean, as we talked about earlier, the industry itself is stabilized. We don't have the peaks and the valleys and the roller coaster rides, It used to be where you hired 100 pilots a month, then you furloughed 2,000. Then you hired 100 pilots a month, then you furloughed 2,000. Now it's just a steady. We're not hiring 100 pilots a month. We're doing it smaller amounts, but it's steady. And they're forecasting, we're going to need, 10,000 pilots at United alone in the next 10, 12 years. That's if we don't grow. That's if, just through attrition. Guys retiring.
Now, are they still making you guys retire earlier than everyone else? I mean,
They changed it a while back. It used to be you had to retire at age 60. Now it's age 65 is mandatory retirement.
so they moved up to 65.
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
And that was because the pilot shortage was taking effect, and they were losing a lot of the qualified, well-experienced pilots. So they basically kicked the can down the road and pushed it back 5 years. Now the guys are retiring again, and now they're trying to find people to come up.
So there's usually always two pilots in the plane.
At least
I remember when I was little, they always had a third guy in the back.
that was a flight engineer. We don't have flight engineers anymore.
So what happened to the flight engineer? Did that all get on the computer? Or?
Yeah, the technology all changed.
Yeah,
So now you only need two.
yeah.
But there's always two on the flight deck at all times. And on the long flights, if you go over 8 hours, you get an extra guy. And if you go over 12 hours, we get 2 extra guys. So in the flights that I do, we have 4 of us.
So that means you're doing an international flight?
That's all I do is long haul international.
And what cities are you usually running in and out of?
Shanghai, Beijing, Hong Kong, Frankfurt, Sao Paulo.
You probably have a totally different view of the planet than someone who lives.
I wish
works in
everybody would
Ahwatukee.
travel. I honestly wish everybody would travel. And that's one of the things that boggles my mind is that I think it's about 70% of the American population does not have a passport. They don't know what the rest of the world even...
I know. I always think
out
it's
there.
the funniest when they sit there and say, well, that's like socialized medicine. It's like, well, have you ever been to Finland? Have you ever been to Denmark, Sweden, Switzerland? That's a lot nicer country than your country.
My
But they're sitting
family's
there-
from Australia.
Yeah. I mean, you talk to these hillbillies in Kansas, well, they're socialized medicine. It's like, dude, go to Finland, Denmark, Switzerland, go to any of those countries. My brother got a job transfer from Kansas to Sydney, Australia.
Mm-hmm.
He was only there like 3 days and he applied for citizenship. He said, and now he's got permanent citizenship. He said, you can't go from Kansas to Sydney, Australia, then take the return flight. But when you listen to, I did not know that 70% of America did not have a passport, but all these people that are sitting there saying, America is the greatest country in the earth. When you say America is the greatest country on the earth, you haven't left America.
We're
I mean,
really,
you just
we-
said
we are
exactly
great-
under your
we are
breath.
a great country, but we lag in a lot of areas, I think.
Yeah.
And
I love Sydney. I love Australia.
Yeah.
I love their health care. I love their quality of life. People just know that you don't have to work all the time to live. you
Yeah.
know, and you don't have to work to have health care. You have health care and
Yeah.
decent health care.
What I've always thought, what the world needs now is nobody needs an idea. I mean, you have 200 countries, and everybody is the top 10 in something. And if everybody else would just admit, okay, we're not in the top 10, we're like 38 in this. So we're going to cheat off of you for this, and you for that, and you for this, and you for that. No idea needs to be tried.
Wasn't it the guy in Taiwan, the president of Taiwan, who was
That's what
smart
happened
enough?
when they revamped their entire medical
Yeah.
system in Taiwan, and they looked at all the different countries and they said what works and what doesn't, and they come up with the best system. Taiwan now has the best medical system in the world.
Yeah, and theirs is 1,700 a year, and ours is like, what, 7,000? And that's not even covering like 30 million people.
All right.
Yeah. And in that book he wrote, it was on Fareed Zakari. Fareed asked him, he says, well, what did you take away from America's healthcare system? And he said, nothing.
No.
He said, America is the only example of what you don't want to do. To have a,
Well, all you got to do is look at it and say, what are the other countries doing? And there's not another country on the planet that's trying to repeal their own medical system.
yeah. Well, they always say that they always say your number one worst enemy is always yourself. And this country is so great at shooting itself in the foot, but so is every country. So is every individual.
Yeah, yeah.
You know?
But travel, I didn't really travel until I met Bob, and it's been eye-opening for me. I grew up in a little teeny town in Oregon, and I was kind of like those people in Kansas. I totally have a different outlook on many things in life.
So are you a beaver or a duck?
I'm a beaver.
You're a beaver?
Oh, not a duck.
Yeah.
Sorry, ducks out there.
Yeah, I just don't think we don't need a smart leader. We need a humble leader that can admit that other countries do things better than us. And if every country just stole the best ideas from the best countries, it would just be amazing.
Yep.
And everybody always thinks that, well, America's different. No, there's 7.5 billion people, and they're not very different at all.
That's right.
So, from 30 years ago to now, like when you're flying from like America across the Pacific, which is like half the globe, 30 years ago when you looked out the window, was there no traffic? Today, you just see one or two, or is it starting to look like I-10 up there?
Across the Atlantic, it looks like I-10. There's an organized track system that goes across the Atlantic, and there's rush hour across. All the flights across the Atlantic, mostly going eastbound are all-nighters. You leave here in the afternoon, and you get there the next morning. And there is just literally thousands of airplanes going eastbound. And then in the morning, it's going westbound. You can watch the flow. The Pacific is still fairly, light. And there might be 3 or 4 of us up there across the North Pole, on any given day. You don't hear anybody on the radio.
So you're really not flying around the Pacific, you're mostly diving over the North Pole?
You can go eastbound or you can go westbound, and depending on the winds and the weather. But yeah, we go pretty far north. We go just about over the North Pole and all of the.
And I know
kind of flights.
I know United wouldn't want you to answer this question, but I'm going to ask you anyway. How often do you get scared up there? Because you're like,
We don't.
if there's something happening, I mean, you can't land on the North Pole.
That's why we have training.
Yeah.
That's why we have training, and we have really, really good equipment, and we have really, really good training.
So how many times a year do you get scared up there?
You don't get scared.
You just don't get scared.
You have an issue, you deal with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you fix it.
Oh, final question. I'm sure everybody wants to know, what was your thoughts of that movie, Scully?
He did a pretty good job in that. It was pretty realistic. And
The movie.
The movie was realistic, with one exception. They painted the NTSB as kind of the bad guy doing the investigation, and that was a little bit overblown. It wasn't quite that intense from the NTSB.
Well, it's Hollywood. You got to have a love story, and there's got to be a bad guy. And if you can't have a car wreck, have a plane land in the river.
He
And
did a
Tom
good job.
Hanks.
Sully did a good job. There's no two ways about it. He truly is a hero, and he did a remarkable job that day.
And you think that's what he had to do?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And it wasn't the fact that he landed in the water. Anybody can land in the water. That's not a big deal. The fact is that he made the decision to land in the water when he did. Otherwise, he would not have made it to the water. And that's why they pay us well, is to make those decisions.
So that you're so overtrained that you're not going to panic. You have so much training that you'll make the decision
You rely on
faster,
your training.
easier, higher
I've
quality.
taken her with me. She's gone to Denver in the simulator with me, putting us through the paces.
Yeah.
They blow engines, they do all kinds of things.
So last question. How come you guys had 0 fatalities last year and Americans had 30,000 deaths on the roads? I mean,
I can't speak to anything about the autos. I'm not an auto expert other than driving. All I know is about the aviation industry, and it's a very safe industry.
well, I'm thinking maybe if they tested the Americans more, put them in simulators more. I mean, you look at people's driving and you're like, when I got here 30 years
agree.
ago, I had no problem riding my bicycle around Ahwatukee. Now 30 years later, it's gone from like 25,000 people to 90,000 people, and the roads in Ahwatukee aren't safe. And 48th and somebody has to do something with 48th and Ray. I mean, I wish everybody, we need to start a thread on Tukeetown. And every time you see a wreck in Ahwatukee, I want everybody to start posting it so that people can be aware. Because if you don't see, like when you talk to the policemen, the firemen, it's kind of like you traveling around the world. If you're 70% American, you never left America, then socialized medicine's evil. But if you're a fireman and you're a policeman, I mean, they're jaded. I mean, it's carnage out there. And I don't think most of the people know it. And when you tell me you're afraid to fly and you go jump in your car and drive to Target, I mean,
Yeah, that's a lot more dangerous. It
Oh,
really is.
yeah.
But that's because we have really good airplanes, and we have really good training for the pilots. We have very good training.
All right, well, I think you guys are very special. Captain Bob Miller, thank you so much for on your day off coming over to my house
Nice to be
and
here.
talking to all the good people in Ahwatukee.